Hello everyone, welcome back to the Healthy Foundations YouTube channel. Today I am here with Dr. Jack and Dr. Jenny of Family First Chiropractic right here in Dubuque, Iowa, and we are going to be discussing preconception health today.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to start out just by introducing yourselves individually and Family First Chiropractic as a clinic.
Sure, I'll go first. I graduated, I'm first Jack Hinderman. I'm a Dubuque native, if you will, grew up across the river in East Dubuque. I graduated from chiropractic school in 2005, and that's when I started practice. I started practice in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I practiced there for 2 years before opening up Family First Chiropractic Wellness Center here in Dubuque. I opened the doors here in early December of 2007. So
wow.
We've had a good run so far.
Yeah. Wow, coming up on 20 years. Right?
I'm not old enough for that,
math?
so don't talk about that. Don't jump ahead.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
And I'm Dr. Jenny Leist, and I've been practicing since 2014. And after I interned with Dr. Jack Hinderman and his awesome staff here, I went and worked in Illinois for a little bit and came back the following October after my graduation and have been here since.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So it's been great to have Dr. Jenny alongside of us. And then throughout the years, the practice sort of morphed from being just a general chiropractic practice like you would imagine a chiropractic practice to be, where folks are just kind of seeking us out for certain relief or, symptomatology types of reductions of headaches, neck pain, back pain, things like that. But right out of the gates within the first year of practice, I started discovering chiropractic under more of a wellness model. And when I say under a wellness model, is more of a foundational component to being healthy. So I started looking at chiropractic as being more of one of those, basically a health strategy for, strong, healthy, resilient humans.
Yeah.
So going through a lot of extra training outside of college, doing wellness certification programs with Dr. James Chestnut, going through some of those processes, Dan Murphy's neurology stuff. There's, we just kind of got into really nerding out about the neurology and kind of the science behind what it is that chiropractors are actually doing when we perform an adjustment to individuals. As far as the science can tell, what are we actually doing? So that's, we Dr. Jenny and I really kind of dug into that the last probably 10 years for sure. But.
Yeah, I love that. I think, so I started coming to see you guys, it has been, over 2 years ago now, because I came when I was 13 weeks pregnant with my second kid, and he's 1.5 now. So over 2 years ago, I started coming here, and I think I was really struck by the wellness lens as well. Like, it wasn't just symptoms. I was pregnant, so I of course had pelvic pain and things like that, and that was dealt with. But also I remember telling my husband after I got my first adjustment here that I felt like there was just this blood rushing to my brain, and overall just sense of wellness in my body. Everything was kind of working optimally. And he came here, maybe it's been a year ago now, and he had the exact same experience. We had both been seeing chiropractors before coming here consistently, regularly, but we had never had that experience of really not just oh yeah, my pain's gone here, but this whole body feeling of wellness after an adjustment. So that was something that I was really struck by. So you guys are, hitting the nail on the head with that, for sure.
Yeah, in chiropractic we call that when you're in need of adjustment, we call that dis-ease. The body's in a state of dis-ease, which means that the brain is having a hard time of doing one of two things. Either it's having a hard time interpreting the environment that you're in externally, or it's having a hard time understanding what the body's doing internally.
Sure.
Because that internal messaging system is the central nervous system, and we'll get into the weeds of this in a little bit on the neurology and why it's so important to make sure that the spine and nervous system's healthy.
Yeah, I think one thing that I've heard, and maybe I heard it from one of the two of you, is that your nervous system is how your body is experiencing life. So bringing chiropractic in when we're thinking of preconception health, it's like if your body isn't kind of, I guess, digesting your experience in the world as in a safe way, making it feel safe, it's not going to want to get pregnant or you know, once that safety's gone, the first thing in a woman's body to go is our fertility and our body's want and ability to carry out a healthy pregnancy. So yeah, I think I'm really excited to be talking to the two of you with this specific topic.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head.
Beautiful.
we look at it as when you're in a state of ease and your nervous system is highly adaptive. Really, that's what we're looking for. We're looking to create higher levels of adaptability in the individuals that we take care of. Chiropractic gets pigeonholed as some of this as like an alternative healthcare model. But the reality of it is first of all, our healthcare model is really sick care, right? So we're treating symptoms. We're trying to change symptoms, whether that be blood markers or whether that be actual like pain syndromes or symptoms. In healthcare, that's what we're trying to do. And chiropractic doesn't really even belong in that model because it's something completely different. And when I say that, what we're really interested in is just creating resiliency and creating ease and allowing the body to do and function the way that it's designed to function in the first place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. We've switched. Chiropractic is our healthcare now, right? Like this is because it's preventative and also just helps our body be well before we ever have to enter that sick care. So for our family, this clinic, the chiropractic care that you provide here, this is our healthcare, and I am excited to just introduce that to other people and see how it can be so helpful, because I think a lot of people are surprised. Like if my kids, they've never been on antibiotics, they don't go to the doctor with like the traditional medical doctor when they're sick. This is the first place that we come. So I'm excited. Yeah.
Do you get a lot of crazy looks when you have that conversation with people?
Yeah, I mean, you tell someone that your kids have never been on antibiotics, and my oldest is 3.5 now, and it's like the craziest thing ever because normally kids are on antibiotics within the first couple months of their life. So yeah, definitely some crazy looks, but also like, tell me more.
Yeah, right?
Like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
We're crazy for how we behave, right? And how we move forward with our healthcare. But when you look at the results, it's like, maybe they're onto something.
Yeah.
So I got 4 kids, and my oldest is 16, and I got a 14-year-old, and I got a 12-year-old, and I got a 9-year-old. And between the 4 kids, we've done one heavy, hard hitting round of antibiotics, the only medication we've ever done with them. And that was when I had a little guy that came down diagnosed with Lyme's disease. And the reason that we decided to go that route, and I'm still not 100% sure whether I made the right decision, as a parent and getting guilt and trying to make these decisions, it can be kind of challenging.
Yeah.
But the reason that we ended up going that route with it was simply because that's the best that they had. That's the best that medicine had to provide. Yeah. And on the back end of that, we decided we're gonna hit this with the hammer that they have in medicine, which is the antibiotic. He's gonna be on that for a month. And this little guy absolutely amazed me as what was he, like 6 or 7 at the time? He wasn't that old. He might have been 10, he might have been 9. 8, 9, somewhere in that range. But what really amazed me with him is I told him flat out, I'm like, this medication that you're taking right now, this is just gonna kind of knock that Lyme's down a little bit. The only way that you're gonna really be well from this is if your body's strong and resilient. And I had that type of conversation with him, just so that he understood that we're not gonna just treat you with a medication. And so on the side, on the lifestyle side of that, we had a little guy, 9, 10 years old, told him no sugar. You're not going to do any sugar. And, he followed a nutritional plan to a T. No sugar, no grains. He was all in for like 2 or 3 months until he was 100% better. And in the meantime, all around him, his brothers are just doing what kids do, right? They're digging in, they're taking his candy, they're doing, And
believe
you
you.
know, and he gets a little angry about things, but
Yeah.
you know, he stuck with it.
Yeah.
And you know, we got to see some amazing healing. But like you said, you know, with our kids, that's it. That's the only medications we have ever done. We've never done the vaccines. We've never done any of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just chiropractic care. And if you're sick, let's tighten up ship. Let's clean up the diet. Let's make sure, okay, we've been slipping here, we've been slipping there, because it's just so easy to do in modern society to slip on some of these lifestyle behaviors, if you will, that create more of a sick environment inside of our bodies.
Yeah.
So that's great to hear that's how you're using it too. And that's really what we hope, Dr. Jenny and I hope, that everybody looks at chiropractic as being the foundation of their healthcare, because if you focus on making your body strong and healthy, then things work right. Because we're designed to be well. We're designed to be well.
Yeah,
So.
that's always what I try. That's like what I hammer into my clients. We are just trying to give your body some resiliency to manage. You're never gonna live the perfect life, have the perfect diet, never experience stress. That's never gonna happen. But we can build your body up to make sure that it has the capacity to manage these things. So yeah, definitely very much in alignment, I think, the way we both work with our clients.
Yeah.
Okay,
great.
so let's get into some of the questions that I have for the two of you regarding preconception health. Okay, so the first one I have is, so personally, I've been using chiropractic care on and off my whole life, but I've been super consistent with it for the past few years. I've worked in chiropractic clinics since I was younger. And as I mentioned before, I have seen such a difference in my health, especially since coming here within the past 2 years. But for
Sorry, I felt like I was towering over you. So I'm just coming down.
Really I'm just used to people towering over me. It doesn't even faze me anymore. You guys kind of explained what chiropractic care was as we've just been talking in the beginning, but how do you see chiropractic care helping with preconception health specifically?
Do you want to tackle some of this first?
No, you can go ahead, you're on a roll.
Okay, I'm on a roll. Thanks. So, things to consider with preconception is simply that, you know, right now our fast-paced environment world is just loaded with stress. And, you know, what we know from a female perspective is that in utero, as the baby's developing, so are the stash of eggs, right? So we have all the eggs a woman's going to have are developing in utero with baby. But what we're starting to find out with some evidence that's available out there is that the eggs go through a maturation process right before they're released, right? And you know, roughly in the ballpark of about 3 months or so prior to an egg being released, it's going to start this maturation process. And the other thing that we also realize and understand now more than ever before is this concept called epigenetics. Do you get into the weeds with some of that stuff at all?
Yeah, let's go there.
So with epigenetics, this is a really just interesting concept to me, because you know, we're all born with genes, right? So sometimes we tend to like to blame our genetics for how we are today, right? And when I look at genetics, now that I've learned about epigenetics, and I was, you know, just really blessed to be around a cool dude, Dr. Jesse out west when we were in chiropractic school. His dad was a geneticist, so he's the one that first told me about epigenetics. And how this works is simply the epigenetics. If you look at genetics in general and epigenetics, think of all the genes in your body, think of them as like a library. And think of the epigenetics as the books that the librarian's picking to turn on, turn off. Okay. Or like think of genetics that in general being like the keys on a piano, where the epigenetics are the guy playing the piano. Okay. So what I mean by all of this is simply that what they're finding is that the environment plays a gigantic role in how our genes are going to be expressed. And we can actually flip things on and flip things off within our genetic code. And what we know is that the reason preconception care is so important for not only individuals who are struggling with fertility, but really any individual looking to have a baby, is because we can change the genetic makeup or the expression of the genes that we're passing on to our kids. And what we also know because of this epigenetics is that it doesn't only affect our kids, our choices and our behaviors and our environment isn't only going to pass down genetic material and epigenetic expression to our kids, but it's also going to go 3 generations deep. Yeah. And I think that this is probably one of the main reasons we're seeing an explosion right now in neurodevelopmental issues, in autisms, ADHDs, and some of these other things, which if you're not familiar with our clinic at Family First, we do an entire workshop on what we call the perfect storm. And it's just all information geared around the developmental issues that we're facing with our children and what we can do to kind of help with that. Yeah. Okay, but let's kind of backpedal a little bit and we'll get back into that. So we have the opportunity to make changes and pass on the strongest, most adaptive genetic material to our children if we tighten our ships up, the last year or so before getting pregnant. And this goes for guys too. Yep. Okay. The good news is that with the guys, we're constantly making sperm, right? So that genetic material is constantly being updated, and we can actually see bigger, faster changes in the guys because they're going through the entire stage of development to pass on their genetic material. So just from a genetic standpoint, right there is good. It makes a good, valuable argument for looking into taking care of yourself and just being as strong and resilient as you possibly can.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really need to shift and focus on is it's not just about getting pregnant or how quickly you can get pregnant, but it really is, do you want to have a healthy child at the end of this? That idea that generational wealth is great, but generational health is the very best thing you can ever do for your kid. Yeah. And it starts with you. And that, I don't think that we haven't been taking it seriously. I just don't think people are aware of how important it is to optimize your own health before you decide to pass it on to a child, because it's very, very important when we think of giving them a good, solid foundation, especially in the world that we live in. Our environments are very toxic, and it kind of, you really do have to have a special awareness to what you're putting in your body, to what you're consuming, to what your environments are, to be healthy in our current communities and environments. So that idea of epigenetics is so important, and it goes so much, all of this preconception health is so much deeper than just how can I make sure I get pregnant? I want a baby, let's do it now. But it's you have to start thinking about your child before it's ever actually a child or an embryo, right? Yeah.
And what an unfortunate situation that we have ourselves in, that we even have to put any attention towards this at all.
Right.
That we've created such a toxic environment to begin with. Yeah. Toxic, when we talk about toxicity, we're not just talking about from a chemical standpoint, but we're talking about from a movement standpoint, from an information standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. We are so toxic and deficient. Yeah. What a testament to how strong human beings are to begin with.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So having this conversation can kind of maybe create more worry and stress for people, and I don't want to do that, because we all know, we've all seen the guy, and I use this a lot, we've all seen the guy walking around the grocery store, pushing his cart loaded with frozen pizzas, right? Yep. And he's got cases of Mountain Dew under the cart, and then he's got the bottles wrapped around the top of the cart, and this guy is just plumb full of no nutrition, and yet he's surviving, right? Yeah. So I like to just give that example because I don't want you to get caught up and worried about the situation that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
Just understand that every little step that we can take to create a healthier environment, our body's going to respond, because our bodies are just so amazing and blessed to have this innate intelligence that's in us that is always striving to be in an optimal state.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly right. The innate intelligence, and that innate intelligence is the same reason why there are, of course, many different reasons for women who struggle with fertility, but that innate intelligence a lot of the times can be the reason why women struggle with fertility, because your body knows, like, hey, this is not a good situation to create a baby in.
Not ready.
Let's clean it up. Let's clean it up. And then, literally cycle back and, be in a better spot to do that. And that is the goal here, is to just provide that information, not to scare anyone. I've never been someone who thinks that you need to have the absolute perfect diet and, for your desire for health to keep you from living your life, right? Like, sometimes it just is what it is, but there are a lot of things that you can do to create that resiliency, to create that safety for your body, to create those healthy environments for your body and for your future children, that is just simply, giving yourself and your future kids a foundation of health. It just puts them like light years ahead of a lot. So
every choice we make impacts, like we were saying, the next generation 2, 3. So that's huge.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, next question. Let's see. Okay, so most of my work focuses on nutrition and lifestyle factors with women that look to start their conception journey, balance their hormones, or just want to optimize their health. How would you say that chiropractic and lifestyle factors like nutrition and movement complement each other?
I'll let you tackle that one, Doc. Come on, you got that.
So they complement each other really well. Like in chiropractic, we talk about the 3 T's. So thoughts, traumas, toxins, or physical, chemical, emotional stressors.
And those T's and those stressors are what cause what we call subluxation. That's what we're adjusting.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess can we explain what a subluxation is quickly?
Sure. So chiropractic is really based upon a very simple premise, okay? Number one, the body is self-healing, self-regulating, okay? And this is proven time and time again. Anytime you've ever gotten a paper cut and it heals up, okay? You don't have to do anything to it. The body knows what it needs to do, okay? We can start off as, an egg and a sperm come together and then have an entire human being in 9 months. I mean, there is a very smart intelligence that's within all of us that is its job is survival and adaptability. Okay, so that's number one. We're designed to be well, self-healing, self-regulating. Number two is that our nervous system controls and coordinates every single function of our body. When it comes to hormones, it's under the control. The nervous system and the hormonal system cannot be separated. Okay, they both affect each other, and you can affect one by affecting the other. But in the end, if you can balance out the neurology, then the body will naturally want to kick out the hormones that are best suited for that situation. Okay, so that's number two. Number one is body self-healing, self-regulating. Number two, the nervous system runs the show. Okay, so the third thing that we talk about is that a subluxation, okay, is simply an irritation or a disturbance to the nervous system, okay? And if that occurs, it's just not a good thing. It's going to lower our ability, it's going to reduce our ability to adapt appropriately, okay? And then chiropractors correct that subluxation, okay? So that's like the 10,000 foot that's the 10,000 foot view of what we do. Now, if we get into the nitty-gritty of the subluxation itself, and the way that we find it and evaluate for it and then correct it is simply what we know. Okay, so what we know now because of science and neurology is that in and around every joint of the body, there's little nerve cells that are called mechanoreceptors, okay? And these little nerve cells, these little mechanoreceptors, they're like little sensors that fire when we move, Okay, they do a couple of different things. One of the most important things that it does is it helps your brain understand the environment, like we had talked about before. So that's number one. The second thing that happens, and a huge connection between this subluxation and hormones, for instance, is the other thing it does is when the brain is flooded with that mechanoreceptive signaling, it calms down the stress response. Okay, it gets right into that HPA axis, and it shifts you from a state of stress response, fight or flight, and it'll start moving you towards more of a parasympathetic, calm, adaptive state. So yeah. So we got the HPA, HPG. The one is affecting the stress response. The other one's affecting basically the gonads and the sex hormone releases, right? But they're tied together. So you can't have a properly function HPG if you're under stress. It just doesn't work as well.
Right.
Okay. But anyway, getting back to it. So that's what the subluxation is. And the way that we identify, the way that we can find those subluxations is by finding aberrant motion in the spine, areas that are stuck or fixated or tight or just not moving properly. And then by applying a force to allow those joints to go back into their full range of motion, then we're flooding the brain with mechanoreception that it wasn't receiving before, which is going to have a calming effect. So now every time you're out moving around, and let's just say, the subluxation was in your pelvis, right? So your pelvis ain't moving right when you walk. So your brain's just receiving this signal of irritation that's forcing that stress response. We go and we correct that with the adjustment, and then you go out and you move around and you're active. That just the movement is creating this repetition of firing of those mechanoreceptors, which is going to flood the brain, which is going to cause a calming effect on the entire system. I think that's probably what you and your husband felt when you felt like your brain was just clicking more, like you were more aware and alert, is what you were probably feeling there was just that flood of healthy body signals going into the brain, and the brain really liked it, and it kind of perks things up.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for explaining that, because I think understanding a subluxation is really helpful in really understanding chiropractic care and how it helps and why it is so effective.
And it's not like and it's not a magical thing. We can measure it. We have technology that we use to where we can kind of measure the downstream effects of the subluxation on the human body, so that we can lay out game plans and really help restore proper function for people.
Yeah. Okay, so all right, we can bring it back to the nutrition and lifestyle and movement and all that, and kind of how it all works together.
Yeah, so like they complement each other. Well, going back to that, but like once the nervous system is in a better harmony after we get through all of that, working on those stressors, like the nutrition, the emotional health, and the exercise and sleep and all the things, it's crucial to continue that momentum to healing and regulating.
Right. Yeah, I always think of it as, or I guess explain it as, so yes, the chiropractic adjustments, that's what's creating that foundation, right? But if you leave here and you go out and I tell my clients, food is also a safety signal. What you're feeding your body is also a safety signal. So if you're going home after you've come here and you're not properly nourishing your body, neither one of those things are probably going to be that effective, or at least not going to last as long and lead to this resiliency that we are after, especially when we're thinking of preconception health.
It's like you're hitting that threshold, like you're getting closer to that threshold of being overwhelmed again. So you get adjusted and you bring that threshold up a little bit, but then you go and add, like, stop at Casey's and get a Mountain Dew and then a donut, and then you sit in your car for an hour, and it's just...
Exactly. Yeah.
So diet plays a big role on, like, the body's inflammatory markers. So from a neurological component, this is how there is a connection between, or one of the main ways that there's a connection between the foods that we eat and the neurology of the body is simply when we're eating foods that create and promote an inflammatory response and our body's in more of a state of inflammation, the brain perceives that as stress. So that will shift that brain again to start functioning completely differently in a stress response mode versus when it's in that, again, relaxed growth, reproductive mode, right? So that's sort of the tipping point. Like Dr. Jenny talked about it, and we talk about it in chiropractic all the time as the general adaptive potential, which means that as long as we're staying in this zone where our body can handle the stress load we're under, we're going to be healthy. But as soon as we start bumping into that
outside that window of tolerance,
outside that window of tolerance, exactly, that's when things break down. So the chiropractic care widens that window of tolerance. But if you keep going back to the same habits, like you said, it's almost like you're spinning your wheels in the mud,
treading water. Yeah,
exactly.
I think one thing I was just thinking of when you were talking is, I think a good way to think of kind of that calm or parasympathetic state is to think of it as a reproductive state, because that is really what we need to achieve in order to get pregnant, but also create a healthy baby as well.
Right? So that's growth, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, it's growth.
Right.
So you're either in a state of growth and repair, or you're in a state of breakdown and survival.
Yeah.
So we want to be in that growth mode. You see it with babies, you see it with preconception, you see it all the way through. But you nailed it, and you nailed it there. That's exactly right.
And I think, again, and then going back to what you were talking about is like not trying to scare people. It's sometimes you are going to be in that like breakdown mode. But how quickly can your body snap back and come back to that repair and growth mode? So it's like, it's okay if stress is normal, again, like wherever the stressors are coming from. But again, giving your body that foundation of resiliency to be able to dip into that breakdown and come back to the repair.
That's where your body gets stronger too. Like if you don't have a challenge, you're not gonna increase that.
I think like having young kids right now, the viruses that are constantly running through our house. But I see how, as my older son, we just had influenza going through our house. My younger son was sick for a couple of days longer than my older son, because my older son's immune system has fought these viruses before, so his immune system knows what to do with it.
It's got a better workout.
Exactly. And my younger son, his is still learning. So it's like that, our body works like that in so many different ways, and it's not just like that silo of the immune system, but our body as a whole. Those stressors do make us stronger if we give it the foundation that it needs.
Yeah, we call it getting an immune workout.
There's been a lot of those lately for us.
I also like to call it housekeeping, because sometimes we fall into the trap to where when our immune system is struggling, we try to treat the symptoms of that struggle. But a lot of times the symptoms are created from the immune system doing exactly what it's needing to be doing.
Exactly right.
Like a fever, for instance. Like a fever, for instance. I've talked to rooms full of people multiple times where I ask them if fever is a good thing or a bad thing. And usually it's like a 50-50 split. But as soon as I ask them, what do we do? What's the first thing you do when you have a fever? There's always some method to reduce the fever.
Right.
That's the first thing that they come out. Well, if it's a good thing, which I happen to think it is, why would you reduce that or interfere with that?
It's that, just trusting that innate intelligence. Your body knows exactly what to do.
I think it's very comforting if people can just really grasp the concept that deep down inside of your body, the spirit that animates us is always perfect and always wants to be well. And as soon as we stop messing things up, or we get out of the way and we just let our bodies heal and do what they need to do, then it does. It does. I always have clients, I think especially as women, because there is so much pressure in terms of what our bodies look like and wanting to look a certain way. We get very frustrated with our bodies when we feel like, we're at war with our bodies, right? Like our bodies are betraying us, especially when we think of hormones. It's all of the different shifts and phases. Women feel betrayed by their bodies, or they're annoyed that they have to deal with it. But it's like, if you just learn to trust your body and block out the outside noise and like really, really learn to trust that innate intelligence,
it's like the relationship, and I'm not sure what to call it, but it's just a whole different way of really experiencing life and moving throughout your life in your body with that trust, and like having a deeper sense of love and reverence for it, and understanding that your body is always trying to keep you safe. It is never working against you, but we might start working against it, thinking it's working against us. But when you have that trust, then everything becomes so much easier. All of the, the hormone issues and all of that, like when we can tune in and listen, those symptoms are just your body saying, hey, something's up here. Absolutely. I need you to listen to me. When we can listen to that and tap into that, everything gets so much easier.
I think it just takes a burden off of the individual too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't have to do anything spectacular or anything difficult.
Right.
Okay. It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right. It's not
because
easy.
Of distractions and everything.
Because of outside noise.
Outside noise. Yeah. Exactly. But it's a really simple thing.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's the simplest thing, but it is the hardest when we very much.
It's like we want to feel good and feel good yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how do I feel good, and what is the absolute quickest way? Where's the magic pill that's going to make me feel that way?
Yeah.
It's like, healing doesn't feel good all the time, but
yeah. But it's worth it. It's worth it for sure. Okay. Next question. One thing I really try to hammer home to my clients and audience is that managing stress is critically important in not only the preconception phase, but in any phase when trying to have optimal health or just balanced hormones. With chiropractic dealing directly with the nervous system, how does chiropractic help manage everyday stressors for men and women looking to get pregnant?
I think we pretty well nailed that one earlier.
Really, it's about adaptation.
It's about adaptation, and it's about keeping the natural mechanism in play that helps your brain unwind that stress and get back into balance.
Right.
So when we look at the stress response, I've been taught this, I'm sure you probably have too, but we hear fight or flight. Right? So the stress response, really our bodies operate completely differently when we're in that state of stress. Because again, we're in survival mode. So what happens? Well, our blood pressure goes up and our pulse rate goes up. And our digestion turns down. Why does all this stuff happen? Well, the digestion turns down because it's an expensive energy use for our body when it's trying to survive. The blood pressure goes up because we have to get energy substrates to the muscles because we have to survive whatever fight we're going to be up against, right? But in the end, that fight or flight always insinuates that there's going to be some kind of motion, not emotion, could be emotion, but movement. Movement has to take place, right? And this is where chiropractic lives, okay? We live in that movement pattern. So as we're moving, we're firing off those mechanoreceptors that we talked about before. It's flooding the brain. It's starting to turn down that stress response every time we move. And with chiropractic care on top of that, we are just firing off so many more of these mechanoreceptors that to help unwind that stress response process.
Yeah.
Did that get through the rest of that question?
Yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of bring them both together, because I think we've talked about the stress response, and then we've talked about preconception health, but I just wanted to really bring together that idea that we need to be in that parasympathetic state to create the hormones necessary for women to carry out a pregnancy and for men to provide the best quality sperm that they can.
It's like going back to that HPG and HPA axis. So like when we're in that fight or flight stress response, and a lot of us are in a chronic one before we're getting our nervous systems taken care of. But when we're in that chronic stress response, that adrenal gland is firing that cortisol and all the other stress hormones up to kind of kick us into more of that, thereby keeping the gonads from doing their job and kicking out the good hormones that we need to have a baby.
Your body's not going to want to get pregnant when it thinks it needs to run from a tiger.
Exactly. Yeah. as much as you might think that you want to get pregnant, even though, you know, your work schedule is crazy, or you're constantly going, or, you know, you, again, like your nutrition's off or whatever it is, your body, is gonna shut that down.
Your body knows. It's like, I'm not ready. You gotta calm down.
Okay.
And we've seen this, and I'm sure you've seen it too a lot, but when there's a lot of stress and anxiety about the conception itself, it tends to take longer to conceive.
Yeah.
And you know, I can think of three different couples that did not conceive their baby until they had already given up hope, thinking that they're not going to be able to conceive, kind of went with it, just it is what it is, went on with their lives, going through the process of adoption and then getting pregnant.
I've heard
three
that
times.
So many times too.
3 times.
Yeah.
And I think it has to do with the stress and anxiety around the whole process.
Yeah.
And just how badly
Well, it
we
becomes
want
like a
it.
job too.
Yeah.
You know, you get very involved in like, where am I at in my cycle, and like when do we need to try to conceive, and it, you know, when you start scheduling sex, like it's not fun anymore. So with all of that being said, what would your advice be to couples, both men and women, who are looking to conceive within the next, let's say at any time in the next year?
The sooner you can start like preparing your body, the better. So that being like chiropractic care foundationally to get the nervous system calming down and all balanced out and harmonized. But then on top of that, the nutrition, that's huge, because that's what's building our bodies and building the future body. And then our sleep and our exercise and our spiritual and emotional health, like it all plays a part in helping our system do its thing.
Feel whole and
So I imagine with your clients, you're getting into some specifics with the nutritional component of it. We like to keep it fairly simple. We know that a lot of micronutrients that are on the list of things that women need to take, you know, a lot of them can be found in like grass-fed meats, for example, right? And the foods that we eat, grass-fed organ meats, fish oil, fats are so important at this stage, and I think that people are kind of afraid of fat. Now you want to be careful with the quality. The quality of fat really does matter, and it's starting to get a lot of attention now, which is good. Like just recently, within the last year and a half, it's, you know, fats are getting a lot more attention. But I think that it's okay to get 30 to 40% of all your calories from good, healthy fat, like omega-3 fats.
Your hormones love fats.
Every cell membrane in the body is made of fat and protein, right? So we want to make sure that we're getting good on fat and we're getting good on protein, big time. And then of course you want to mix in as clean of fruits and vegetables and some of these things. It's just as clean as we can get it. You know, a good resource always has been like the Dirty Dozen list, right? That comes out, and just avoid those things, right? And or get as organic, or even better than organic, local organic foods, to make sure that we're not getting some of those other industrial chemical byproducts into our system that are well-known hormone dysregulators and all this other stuff. It's kind of like the body burden study. You familiar with the body burden study? That's the one where they're like testing cord blood in children, in unborn babies, and they found like over 300 industrial chemicals in the cord blood, and 200 of them cause birth defects, and 180 of them cause neurodegenerative types of issues, and it's just another amazing thought about like how tough human beings are, that we're still walking and still talking and doing the thing. But those are some of the things that I like to consider when I'm working with a mother, is from a nutritional standpoint. There is a whole list of like vitamins and stuff that they could take, but ideally we'd want that diet cleaned up, because sometimes the nutrition that we need to take and buy and supplement, we're taking just because we're toxic in other things, right? So I think we can kind of eliminate some of that stress load. Now, I am no master herbalist or a nutritionist when it comes to what vitamins for this and that and the other thing. I've studied it enough to kind of have a decent idea of it, but it all comes down to what are we deficient in and what are we toxic in.
Yeah.
And it's just trying to clear that up so that we have pure, sufficient nutrition that our body requires.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are in a state right now and you're listening to this and you're really concerned about your nutrition, you know it hasn't been good, you're already struggling, maybe you got like PCOS or other hormonal diagnoses already, then you're going to want some help from someone like Bree, okay, who focuses on this nutritional component. You're going to need to find a chiropractor who's looking to help to restore the normal balance between the gas pedal and the brakes, the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, so that you can heal and regulate. But if you're already super healthy, you may not need all this extra help, just a little bit of fine tuning, right? And just cleaning up the diet and you know, just kind of having a good idea on the basis of what you need.
Getting a stake in the ground and where you're at.
Yeah.
Right.
Being real with where you're at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love that idea because for me, I think the majority of what I'm doing with my clients is simplifying and unlearning. I definitely used to be that person who I lived in California and I worked at a supplement company. So that is like the quickest way to feel like you need
everything.
every supplement ever.
Need everything.
But what I have learned and what I feel best on is nutrition first. You can get nearly everything you need from the food that you eat, and eating a diet that is more like ancestral. There's a reason we're deficient in all of these things, and it's because we've removed really nutrient dense foods from our diet, and we have also, started eating meat that doesn't have the nutrients that it previously did because of what these animals are being fed as, they're raised. So that is like number one for me, is how do we introduce really nutrient dense foods into your body? And then with our soil being what it is, where are some of the things that would be a good idea to supplement, like fish oil, or just taking I don't even normally tell my clients. Yeah, magnesium. Yeah, I don't even say multivitamin. Like if you are opposed to eating organ meats, okay, how do we get that into your diet? Because that's nature's multivitamin. Yeah. And that's actually what we have evolved on. And, what actually gives our bodies the minerals and all of those micronutrients to, give us great egg quality, give us great sperm quality. So I love that. Yeah, simplify. You don't need every supplement under the sun. The internet's going to convince you otherwise, and people are going to try to get you to buy 1,000 supplements.
really easy to get into the weeds with this.
It is.
Really easy.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to waste a lot of money on it.
It is, because everyone is being paid by a different company to tell you, hey, you need this, and hey, look at what I took to get pregnant, and it's like, okay, well, that sounds good to me. I want to do that too.
It's like you scroll through 5 reels and you've got 6 that are telling you the same supplement, and they look the same but they're different people, and it's okay.
Yeah. You always have to be wary if you're following someone who's always tagging brands in every single post. It's listen, you have to understand this is how these people make their money. Yeah. So.
And there's nothing wrong with making money selling supplements at all.
Of course not.
But it can be really overwhelming, especially when you're in a state where you are trying to just get the most out of your dollar and have the biggest functional change within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You could easily spend $1,000 on supplements a month if you wanted to.
Yes,
and would they be bad? No, probably not.
Right.
But is it necessary? Probably not.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's where having a coach is a great thing.
That's right. That's where having a coach. And if you're looking for nutritional advice, go to Bree, not Dr. Jack and Dr. Jenny. We just know enough to be dangerous. So.
Well, thank you both for your time today. This has been really great. I think a lot of the information you shared is going to be really enlightening for people. So I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time.